everybody, including coaches, media, everybody was. It was like he was kind of doomed from the start just because I felt like who his father was. You know, he's only been coached by his dad. If anything, his dad showed him the right way, and the only way, and you know how to work hard and do things as a pro. It should be a given you would want to draft this guy.
Former Browns player Phil Taylor has just dropped a massive bombshell, exposing the NFL's dirty little secret. According to Taylor, the owners and coaches in the NFL never wanted Shadur Sanders to make it to the league. And why? Because he's Deion Sanders' son. That's right, you heard it. His connection to one of the greatest to ever play the game became the reason why these NFL execs didn't want him drafted. They were throwing around excuses, saying he was only coached by his father. But let's be real, Deion didn't teach Sheduer anything other than the value of hard work and discipline.
Felt like, you know, owners and things like that, they didn't really like, you know, Prime and, you know, how flashy he was. So it kind of, you know, put a, you know, bad stain on, you know, Sheduer. But I think Sheduer is one of the classiest guys out there. And, you know what I'm saying?
Really Phil Taylor went on to say that NFL owners didn't want Shadur Sanders in the league because of his father, Deion, and Shedur's flashy lifestyle. However, he stressed that Sheduer is one of the classiest young players to join the NFL this season. Taylor emphasized that despite the attention Shedur's personal style gets, he is still just a kid navigating the spotlight. Instead of being judged for his talent and character, Sheduer was unfairly critiqued based on his family and image. Taylor believes these biases kept some teams from drafting a player who is ready to shine on his own. Phil Taylor made it clear that the focus should be on the game, not the drama. He believes it's time for everyone to stop holding Shadur Sanders back and just let him play. Sheduer has earned the love and respect of fans, and it's obvious that he's ready to show what he can do on the field. Despite that, Taylor pointed out that there are still forces trying to undermine him, making it harder for Sheduer to just focus on his craft and enjoy the success he's worked so hard for. It's time for all the noise to stop.
He's still a kid.
And that's the thing. And it's, like I said, it's too much court of public opinion. You know what I mean? You got to let the guy play.
Former NFL players and analysts have started to question the real reasons behind Shadur Sanders' slide in the draft. Bart Scott, appearing on ESPN, pointed out what he believes was a deliberate effort by teams to avoid picking Sanders early. He suggested that the teams didn't overlook Sheduer because of his performance, but for more questionable, less transparent reasons. This has sparked an ongoing conversation about bias and the influence of politics in the NFL draft process, with many wondering if Shedur's connection to Deion Sanders played a bigger role in his draft position than his actual abilities.
Attached him to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
No idea, man. You have no idea. We've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves. Yeah. And you're not gonna catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not. When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shadur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators.
Bart Scott made it clear that Shadur Sanders wasn't just a viable option, but the ideal fit for several teams desperate for a quarterback. He argued that this wasn't even up for debate. It was a massive missed opportunity. Scott pointed out that evaluators and scouts had all the necessary data, film, and performance metrics to make the right decision, yet they chose to overlook Sanders. According to Scott, that decision is going to come back to haunt them. As Sanders continues to prove himself on the field, Scott warned that some front office personnel might soon find themselves out of a job for letting such a talent slip through their fingers. So, what exactly sparked this entire fiasco? Why are players and analysts now speaking out against the owners for their treatment of Shadur Sanders? Many point to the media, NFL pundits, and even some coaches who have openly criticized Shedur's confidence, often misinterpreting it as arrogance. His self-assurance, which should be seen as a positive trait, rubbed some the wrong way. The tipping point came when respected quarterbacks coach Mike McCoy publicly labeled Sheduer as brash and arrogant during a press conference. That statement sent shockwaves through the league. While some pushed back against McCoy's comments, the fact that it came from a coach of his caliber only added fuel to the fire. This perception of Sheduer quickly spiraled, shaping narratives and influencing draft decisions in ways that stats and performance never could.
Team NFL interview, you heard Shady McCoy give out a chuckle. Brash and arrogant is what they said about Shadur
Picking
Sanders.
in the top 7.
No doubt about it. That's the quarterback coach. 2-5, I'm going to let you sound off real quick. What do you make of it? Do you have an issue with it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you could say this to your coaches, your ownership, your GM, right? But why are you saying it to the media, right? And another thing is, like, I hate when people don't ever, like, put a name on it.
This didn't stop there. Critics jumped on the moment, and the media followed with relentless momentum. Prominent voices like Colin Cowherd publicly labeled Sheduer and his family as egoistic, criticizing their selective stance on potential team destinations. What began as speculation soon spiraled into a full-blown agenda. The narrative shifted. Headlines became fixated on attitude rather than athleticism, character over capability. Franchises, wary of the noise and controversy, began to tread carefully. At the peak of the controversy, Colin Cowherd doubled down with sharp criticism, openly mocking Deion Sanders and suggesting he had overhyped his son. In Cowherd's view, Deion hadn't instilled humility in Sheduer. Instead, he implied Deion was capitalizing on his son's growing fame. It was a harsh and polarizing take, one that sidestepped Sheduer's proven abilities, impressive stats, and leadership on the field. Rather than acknowledging the quarterback's performance, Cowherd chose to spotlight family optics and media perception, fueling the narrative that had already begun to overshadow the truth. Colin Cowherd wasn't alone in his criticism. The shots at Sheduer came from all sides, each adding fuel to the growing narrative that contributed to his unexpected slide in the draft.
Okay, let's get to the Shadur Sanders thing. So, let me tell you something. It's never a bad message to tell your kids, be humble. Humility works in the summer. It works in the fall. Humility works in the spring. Humility works in the winter. Don't gas your kids up too much. It didn't really bother me when they retired Shadur Sanders' number.
One of the most talked about moments unfolded during a segment with Stephen A. Smith, where former NFL quarterback Cam Newton offered his take. Cam argued that Sheduer shies away from being challenged, implying that his confidence crosses into self-absorption, that he genuinely believes no one in the draft class measures up to him. It was yet another layer in the media storm that increasingly focused on personality over performance. Cam Newton didn't stop at challenging Sheduer's mindset. He took it a step further by questioning the legitimacy of his on-field accomplishments. Newton suggested that Sheduer had operated in convenient positions, hinting that his success stemmed more from controlled environments and favorable setups than from raw talent or perseverance. The implication was clear. Sheduer's rise was cushioned, not earned, a narrative that continued to cast shadows over his draft stock, despite the numbers and leadership he consistently delivered.
I mean, listen, I'm not refuting what you're saying. I'm trying to comprehend what you're saying. What do you mean he doesn't want to be challenged?
That got my attention too.
So I'm asking. You on first take. You damn right I'm asking you.
There's been history there, and I've always challenged Sheduer publicly and to him in ways that, like, bro, I want to see the best version of Sheduer. Sheduer has always played in a very convenient situation.
In the end, it's becoming clear that a concerted effort by media personnel, NFL pundits, and even team owners played a significant role in smearing Shadur Sanders' reputation, despite his undeniable talent and rightful place in the first round of the draft. His confidence, often misinterpreted as arrogance, became the target of criticism, fueling a narrative that did more harm than good. This campaign against Sheduer wasn't just about his skill set, but about his connection to Deion Sanders, his personal style, and the way he carried himself, traits some saw as a threat rather than a strength. Now, former players like Phil Taylor are stepping up, speaking out against this unfair treatment. They're calling attention to the bias and politics that played a part in Shedur's draft slide. Taylor, among others, has made it clear that teams overlooked Sheduer not for his performance, but for less transparent reasons. The truth is, Sheduer deserved to be a first-round pick, and this smear campaign ultimately hurt the league more than it helped. As the season progresses, it's becoming increasingly evident that those who passed on him may soon regret their decision, with Sheduer continuing to prove that his talent was always top tier. So, what do you think about all of this? Do you believe Shadur Sanders was unfairly overlooked because of bias and outside factors? Or do you think the criticism of his confidence was justified? How much do you think his connection to Deion Sanders played a role in the decisions made by team owners and coaches? And with players like Phil Taylor now speaking out, do you think this is just the beginning of more truth coming to light? Let us know your thoughts. Do you believe Sheduer deserves more respect from the NFL? Or is the league right to have questioned him? Drop your opinions in the comments below.